check out any time you like, but you can never leave.
So, two friends of mine and I went to Nashville to watch a football game a few weeks ago. We stayed at an Airbnb we have never stayed at before, but it was a good deal and we all got our own bedroom. The first thing we noticed was a door in the middle of the hallway that was not a bedroom. It was a door to the basement. The walkway down was as creepy as one could imagine. It looked like something out of The Conjuring with stone walls and rickety stairs. My friends thought it was a little creepy, but I got an immediate feeling of uneasiness and discomfort. The hair on my arms stood straight up as my friends decided to go down into the basement and look around. The next thing we noticed was that the door would not close. There was no latch and no way to keep the door closed. So we decided to put a basket in front of the door to keep it shut. We went to the game and then out afterwards and got back to the house at around 2:30 a.m. The door was closed, but the basket was pushed away from the door by about 5 feet. My friends didn't think much of it in their drunken state, but this really did not sit well with me. I begrudgingly went to my room to go to sleep, making sure to lock the door behind me. I woke up around 8 a.m. the next morning and heard the doorknob to my room slowly turning. The door being locked, it wouldn't open, and I figured it was my friends trying to get me up for breakfast. Then, I hear a very distinct shh coming from the other side of the door. Not thinking it was anything other than my friends, I just went back to sleep. About an hour later, my friends got back from breakfast, and I got up. I asked them why they tried to open my door this morning and were shushing people. They both looked at me, confused, and asked what I was talking about. They were very adamant that they did not try to open my door, and they did not shush anyone. So, what do you think? Joking friends? Or something more sinister?
So my friend, we'll call her A, and her boyfriend, J, were living in Bath, England at the time. And her sister, Mum, and stepdad, total skeptic by the way, came to visit them and got an Airbnb. They decided to stay there with them for a little staycation. The first night they were there, her sister was in the bathroom one night and could hear a woman sobbing outside the door. Thinking something was wrong, she leaves the room to find that everyone is asleep. All the lights are off, and no one heard the woman sobbing except for her. This happens multiple times while they're staying there, only to her sister. As I mentioned, her stepdad is a total skeptic and never wants to believe that anything is paranormal. The way the house is set up, the bedrooms are on the ground floor, the kitchen and living room are directly above, and the bathroom is off the staircase landing. In the middle of the night, late, like 3 or 4 a.m., A hears loud footsteps go from the living room to the kitchen. She thinks, that's weird that someone's still up. The footsteps then go from the kitchen to the bathroom and back to the living room. She thinks that it has to be her stepdad because his footsteps are the loudest. In the morning, she asks him, "Why were you up so late last night? I heard you walking around at like 3 o'clock. He says, "I thought that was you." A and J have their own bedroom. The first night, they close the door and go to bed, and a few minutes later, the door flies open. It doesn't creepily creak open. It deliberately flies open, like someone is pissed about it being closed. This happens every night. On the last night, when it happens, A almost doesn't care anymore, but Jay becomes extremely startled and tells A to look at the door immediately. They both see a disembodied hand holding the doorknob. They both saw it there, and it stayed there as if someone was staring back, until whoever's hand it was eventually walked away. Later, when she was telling a friend about where they stayed, she said, "I know that place. Was it this address?" And A said it was. Not only was her friend familiar with that house, but she had known someone who was a housekeeper and had worked there before. They said that they would never, ever go back there because it was haunted as hell. This is 100% true. A and J are the realest people I know. Her stepdad is still a bit skeptical, but is officially terrified of this house.
I wanted to share this story to warn people, but it is not necessarily a creepy encounter. Just sort of a story that is weird and freaked me out. I'm traveling around the country in my car. I've been driving for over a week from the city I lived in and have so far slept in my car to save money. It wasn't until I got to a big enough city that I decided to treat myself to an actual bed that would be comfortable. I opted to choose Airbnb because it is cheaper than hotels. I booked this Airbnb the day before I arrived to the city, so there weren't many options left. I'd found this apartment on Airbnb that looked very new and modern, and it was in a great location. The price was decent for its location, and it almost seemed too good to be true. The only downfall was that it was listed as a new listing and had 0 reviews. I figured that the price was low because it was a new listing and decided to give it a shot. Must be legit because it's Airbnb, right? When I got to the apartment building, it was older looking than I had expected. I later found out, or realized, that my Airbnb was most likely the only renovated apartment in the building, and the building seemed to be in poor condition. It looked more like a dorm hall rather than an apartment building. Anyways, I let it all slide because I wasn't paying too much, so what could I expect? The apartment itself looked like the pics, so that was good enough. Everything went well for the first 2 days. As a female traveling alone, I always make sure to be safe. I don't go out when it's dark, and I always lock the door. Every single lock, including the chain thing. Anyways, on the 3rd day, I was out all morning and came back to the apartment to change to head to the beach. I had again locked the door, including the chain. I was in front of the door watching TV while changing, when the door suddenly unlocks and someone opens the door. I am beyond lucky that I had put the chain lock on the door, or else it would have opened all the way. I was naked and no one else was supposed to have the keys. My first reaction was, "Excuse me?" And I closed the door right away, locking it again. I came from the back of the door and did not look or see who was opening it. I sat in front of the door, scared and shocked, realizing that this person could technically still get in here since they obviously have the keys to the apartment. At first, I thought maybe it was the owner coming back after I checked out. But I was not supposed to check out until the following day. So it was not possible. After crying for a few minutes, I recuperated myself and called the owner and told her what had happened. She told me that no one else should have a set of keys other than her and I, and that she is at work and it was not her. I was scared to stay in the apartment because someone could come in. I didn't want to leave because I had all my valuables there. It was a lose-lose situation. I think I called my dad, who told me that it was not okay that someone has the keys and that she needs to take care of this ASAP. So he talked with her, and she told me she would be there shortly with a locksmith to change it and give me a pair of new keys. She then proceeded to tell me that she had only had this apartment for 6 months, and that before I stayed there was only one other Airbnb booking, She also mentioned that it had been sitting empty other than those 2 bookings because she had been renovating the apartment, which now makes sense why the building looks like absolute shit and doesn't match the apartment. She told me that the only possibility for who that was could be the previous owners or somebody related to them. Isn't that illegal though? That possibility or theory really messed with me. How is it possible that I was gone all day, every day, and the 10 minutes I was home during the daytime, someone tries to come in? Did they know I was there? What were they coming in for? If this apartment has been sitting empty for half a year, maybe they did this frequently. Or maybe they saw me come in and tried to do something to me. These questions are constantly on my mind. I just know I am so lucky that I put the keychain on the door, or else I don't even want to know what else could have happened. Needless to say, I won't be leaving a good review, and I won't be staying in an Airbnb that has no reviews or seems too good to be true.
To start off, I'd like to say that nothing like this has ever happened to me or my boyfriend, and the 2 of us were more on the non-believing side before it happened. We still can't believe, process, or understand what happened to us. My boyfriend and I were on vacation in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, staying at an Airbnb on St. Mary's River in Sault Ste. Marie. It was an older 3-bedroom house with its own nice private beach, and we had the entire place to ourselves for the night. We started off the night by leaving to get some food, playing Monopoly, going swimming, etc. Nothing out of the ordinary occurred. As soon as it got dark, we went out to smoke before we ate the food we had just bought. We went back in, had our dinner, and went to the master bedroom. We were both on our phones when the light on the ceiling fan started to flick on and off. I said that the house was old and suggested we turn the lights off. He said no, and that we should keep it on. This is when he first told me that he had a bad feeling. I walked out the hallway to the living room to see if I could sense the energy he was feeling, and he followed me. I felt as if nothing was wrong and went back to the bedroom. He stayed in the hallway, staring at a closed bedroom door. I asked why he was staring at it, and he said, "I swear I just saw the light in this room turn on and off." I was more concerned about a person being in this house, and I said we needed to go in there and look. We walked in, checked under the bed and in the closet, and nobody was in there. He became really startled, and I was just really confused. He said that the dresser had just been shaking really aggressively against the wall. I was skeptical since I hadn't seen it myself, but I said I believed him, and we left the room. After we were back in the living room, he said, "I have a really bad feeling like something bad is going to happen if we stay here. We need to get out of here." We had nowhere else to go until the next day, and I didn't want to leave, but I agreed that we'd go for a drive, come back after, and get our things, and leave if he still felt the same way. After we finished driving, we went back into the house, and he still had this bad feeling. I still didn't want to go, but I agreed that we would get our things and leave. We walked into the master bedroom first, and the light switch for the ceiling fan and light was off. We had left it on. My boyfriend said, "This is exactly what I'm talking about. Look at the fan." It was moving slowly in a circle, and as soon as I looked up, it began moving faster, but inconsistently, as if someone was batting at it. The light began to flick on and off again. Mind you, the switch is still off at the wall. This was enough for me to start freaking out, so we grabbed everything out of there and the master bathroom and got the hell out of that room. Next, we went to the kitchen to do our dishes, since this is a requirement for checkout. My boyfriend reached into a drawer, pulled out the biggest knife in it, and turned his head to look at me. He said nothing and put the knife down and closed the drawer. I assumed he was trying to show me that it was there in case there really was another person in the house. He started visibly freaking out, and I asked what was wrong. He said, "I'll tell you in the car." We packed up, locked the house behind us, and hit the road. I asked him what he had been so afraid about, and he said, "That thing was talking to me the entire time. It got control of me when I reached for that knife, and it told me to stab you. I had to stop myself and fight it." He continued on saying that he had been listening to these things the whole time, such as, "Hit her," and "Pick up that chair and throw it at her." Hearing this made me sick to my stomach. We ended up sleeping in my car at a rest stop, and neither of us slept well at all, with this lingering awful feeling. Nothing has really happened to us since, so I don't think it is attached to us or anything, but I just can't fathom how it gains that much control over him in such little time. As for the Airbnb owner, I did reach out and text her and ask if anybody had noticed any paranormal activity in the home. She said no, and that this was the first she'd heard of it. I suggested that she have the house cleansed, but I don't really think she was a believer, because she just said, "Wow, I'll definitely look into that." I didn't really want to go into details of what happened, because honestly, I don't think she would have believed me.
Just before the pandemic hit, my girlfriend and I took a vacation into the woods of Vermont. Getting there was absolutely amazing. We took our vintage Jeep on the several-hour journey and enjoyed the stunning mountain views as we lumbered along the dirt roads towards our rented vacation spot. As I said, getting there was amazing. Roads, paralleling rocky rivers, the mountains, the trees, and the rumble of the engine. Honestly, I'm not sure any vacation spot can top the experience of getting there in that Jeep. The first night was a lot of fun. We sat in the hot tub, looking at the stars, which were free of light pollution from the concrete wastelands that are cities. After a big dinner and probably too many episodes of American Dad, we went to bed. That night we heard an extremely loud boom coming from the front door, as if someone kicked it with everything they had. Honestly, I thought I dreamed it because I heard nothing after that, but the next day, I asked my girlfriend if she happened to hear it as well. To my surprise, she said she had. The path to the front door is soft dirt, and there's absolutely no way to get to or from the door without leaving perfect footprints. Opening the metal door, I saw only our footprints in the dirt, but there was a dent in the door. This door was metal. It had to have been hit extremely hard by something that somehow left no trace. This was obviously a red flag, but I didn't let it consume me, since after checking everything else around the house and our vehicle, it was clear nothing else was touched. Night 2's evening went much like the last. After a day of adventures, we sat in the hot tub, looking at the stars, had dinner and shows, then went to bed. This night would go a little differently though. After coming inside from the hot tub, I had a strong feeling that we were being watched. We are all familiar with this feeling, and typically there is a source, a window, tree line, just around the corner, you know. But not this time. It just felt like it was coming from literally everywhere, as if every inch of the house was just consumed with eyes staring. There was even more to this feeling. I was also under the strong impression that if I acknowledged this experience in any way, that it was suddenly going to get a lot worse. So I said nothing. Sleeping that night was hard. In terms of noises, there wasn't much that wasn't just a multi-hundred-year-old house settling. But the presence grew stronger. It felt like I was trying to sleep with strangers standing over me in the dark. and I certainly did not get up to pee that night. The morning of what would be our third and final night was a lot different. Until this point, the unsettling feeling was only at night, but this time, even in the morning, it was violently strong. I felt like at any moment, one wrong move was going to set 100 poltergeists off, tearing the place apart. Needless to say, getting out of there on another day of adventures was all too welcome. Staying in that house on our third and final night was an absolute nightmare. I felt like I was on some kind of drug. Laying in bed, I got touched many times. My feet, shoulder, ear, hair, and when I wasn't being touched, I could hear breathing and these strange tingling feelings. There were all kinds of noises from the main part of the house as well. Walking, objects being moved. You would have thought there was a Thanksgiving gathering going on out there. That hostile feeling grew more and more intense by the moment, and finally, at around 2:30 a.m., I was ready to take us home. I was very worried as to what would happen if I mentioned what was happening, or even moved my body. But I knew I had to get us out of there. It was time to wake my girlfriend, throw everything in the back of the truck unpacked, and go. Here's where it gets even worse. My girlfriend is an extremely light sleeper. If I so much as adjust my pillow, she wakes up. But not tonight. I tried shaking her, pushing her fairly hard, and talking to her, but she would not wake up. The stairs to the bedroom were very high, and if I made one wrong move carrying her, and she fell, it would surely kill her. So I decided that since I couldn't wake her, we were trapped. I certainly wasn't about to leave her in this dangerous situation alone. So I didn't sleep. She would not wake up. I kept getting touched, and the entire main part of the house was getting reorganized. The moment the smallest sliver of sun peeked over the distant mountains, all the action stopped. The hostility was very much still there, but at least the moving furniture and items had ceased. I was able to wake my girlfriend up, and we did what I wanted to do at 2:30 a.m. without saying a word. Obviously, this rushed morning without coffee or breakfast and absolutely no communication from me was confusing to her. But once the house was in my rearview mirror, we both started bringing up the hostile feeling. She also felt like acknowledging it was going to set it off like a bomb. She shared all the same feelings until our third night. She slept like a rock and felt as though all she did was blink and it was morning. Living in the rural northeastern region of the United States, you can't really be a complete skeptic of the paranormal. I never believed in the paranormal until moving out here. My childhood friends and I have all had many intense experiences. Some of these experiences we even had together. I don't know what was in that house with us. It certainly didn't seem to be just one thing, but it did not like guests, and a poltergeist infestation would not be out of the realms of possible diagnosis. It's no surprise that nobody else mentioned this situation in the reviews of the rental, since the owners of the rental also review the guests. Nobody wants to be blacklisted on that app, and I am no exception. This place is just another reminder that when out for a walk in the night, that watched feeling coming from the tree line past the cobblestone fence isn't always an animal or your mind filling in the blanks that you can't see. Stay safe, everyone. Hello watchers and listeners, thank you so much for watching. As always, a big thank you to all of the Reddit users who kindly allowed me to use their stories. If you want to help support this channel, you will find links to both my Patreon and my Teespring store in the description below, so feel free to have a look. And the biggest thank you to all of you who continue to support me. I truly do appreciate it. And remember,
Papa loves you.